Alright guys, so the claim that I'm going to be refuting is that gentrification fails to economically benefit minorities. For me that sounded a little bit funky, because it didn't really say if it was harming it or not. But the claim that I'll be making is that gentrification actually helps all classes, it's just being interpreted differently. So the claims that the advocate made were: 1, gentrification hinders low income; 2, low ethnic owned businesses are put at an economic disadvantage by gentrification; and 3, gentrification causes racial tension. So my response to the first claim is that residents of gentrifying neighborhoods might stay put but suffer from rising rents. The advocate claimed that the people living in neighborhoods would actually have a hard time paying for the rent, so they would have to move out. However, a study done by Freeman and Berconi from Columbia University, and they were economists, they did research that people staying in the neighborhoods actually they suffer from rent, but they actually stay more, because when gentrification happens, more buildings start being placed in there, more local stores, more businesses start to happen, and then people start adapting to the situation and they start getting better jobs. So what my advocate said was that the suffering from payment, that's false, because once people get jobs, they're gonna have the money to pay for it. And the people who suffer from gentrification, it's actually not the people who are low income, that's actually not even anybody. The people who leave though during gentrification is the people with high income. It's because they tend to think that they don't need to stay there anymore and they want to move to better places. My response to the second claim is that urban redevelopment can improve residents' economic opportunity by increasing local employment options and reducing poverty concentrations. So going back to the first one about the low income and the businesses, having urban redevelopment, more structures and more grocery stores, more local markets are being built, and it's becoming more civilized and more interaction between people, where more jobs are becoming more available. And urban development increases neighborhood business activity, which increases local economic development and employment. A reasoning that the advocate made was that the people living in the neighborhood with the markets and all that, their businesses would suffer because they wouldn't have the money to pay for stuff. But with more businesses being built, with more markets, more jobs are going to become more available, and more people will have the money to pay for the stuff that they need, such as living. And the increase of local economic development increases the number of businesses in the neighborhood supporting a grocery or hardware store, which benefits existing residents. That's pretty much just another addition to what I just previously said. And my response to the third claim of gentrification causing racial tension: but though compliments about perceived racism in the workplace and suspicion about white motivations remain fairly common, Black gentrifiers tend to be a cosmopolitan group, and that was from Kay Mowitz from thebridgebk.com. So with this, the thing is that when people talk about the culture change, they're not really talking about a racial style. They're more talking about the culture that they've lived in, and that having new people come in, they're afraid that the culture is going to change, not the conflict between races or ethnicities. It's more the culture that they were used to of different people coming in, of that being altered. And again, by Kay, she mentioned that when the ethnic compositions of low-income Black neighborhoods do change, it's typically because Latinos and other immigrants move into a neighborhood, and such immigration is probably more beneficial than harmful. So a reasoning that my advocate made was that having different race groups in one ethnic neighborhood is going to cause tension, it's going to cause harm, it's going to cause diversity. But what that's actually doing to the neighborhood is actually giving them a better knowledge of everything that's around them and having them get a better understanding of everything that's going on. And that's why gentrification helps all classes, and people who just look at it have looked at it differently and made it become the new normal.
All right, the structural stuff is fine. I thought that you had an interesting quote on the first point. It's a little ambiguous as to how important that is to the system, but I like the general idea suggesting that it brings some economic activity and potential development to the area that makes people happier to be where they are. I think that that's fine. The notion that somebody is hurt because the prices go up and people can't afford that, your argument here is a little ambiguous because it is suggesting that in the long run they'll be able to do that because it's going to develop economic activity in the area. I think that that's the right kind of response. The proof on that, I think, is a little bit thin. You've got this generic statement that suggests that it's going to happen, and you try to get an awful lot out of that for the first 2 points. I didn't hear any additional quotes. I didn't see any examples demonstrating that that was the case. The closest that you get to something like that is the notion that people are going to want to stay in the area because it's got all these new opportunities, and there's going to be more hiring. And so where's the example of this? Where's the proof on that? It just wasn't there. On the third point, you do kind of shift around a little bit, suggesting that the idea of black gentrification is a bridge to other cultures becoming involved. I'm not sure that the advocates issue was particular to ethnic groups in the same way that you're talking about it, but I think that your response suggests that that these issues don't necessarily have to be problematic. It's about culture rather than it is about racial tension and animus. It's not that people hate each other, it's just that they're unfamiliar with what's going on and what the changes are going to be, and that sometimes creates a little bit of uncertainty, and uncertainty is not necessarily a bad thing once people adjust to it. I think that you had like 2 pieces of evidence that you tried to get a lot more proof from than was actually there. Your explanation is okay, but like I said, it feels largely like it's being asserted, and I'm not sure it would be sufficient to convince me that the advocate's evidence was unreasonable.